All right, so let's now take you to the media briefing by Electricity Minister Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa. Let's now take you there live.
Some of the key matrices that have been observed over this the 5-day period. I'm talking from Monday to Friday. So the first one is that, of course, the available capacity has gone down, and this is largely as a result of the planned outages. Remember, just to put it into perspective, when we went into the winter period, part of our winter strategy was to make sure that we reduce planned outages, and we took it down to about 2,500 so that we are able to run this unit, so that we are able to produce the megawatts that are needed to help us to address the issues with regards to the demand that we had projected to surge during the winter period. So where are we now? We are ramping up on planned outages. We can see now that we are over 6,500. So essentially we're increasing this, if you like, close to about threefold. So that's where we are in relation to planned outages. So what is the point that we're making is that the current intensity of load shedding, as we are seeing it now, is primarily on the back of us ramping up on planned outages. It's important that I make the point that it could be expedient for us to continue to run this generating unit and undermine philosophy maintenance, the fact that they've been able to carry us through the winter period, and of course the attraction is that continue to run them, and of course you will not be having load shedding, of course reduce the intensity of load shedding rather. But we have taken a view that when the machine needs to be taken out, the generating unit needs to be taken out, we are going to take them out. Of course, we'll do a computation of what that means in relation to the intensity of load shedding and where we are. We felt that because this is short-term planned maintenance, and of course the spares are available, we already knew what are the components that needed to be attended to. We don't foresee this to be long outages, and that's why we chose to take them out, and we'll continue to ramp up almost at this scale or even a bit higher in relation to planned outages. So if you like, this is a controlled, if you like, intensity of load shedding to allow us the opportunity to really get these machines to be fixed. And this, as a result of this intervention, you can see it also in the unplanned capacity loss factor, what we call the UCLF, is beginning to come down. I did say that our intention is to keep it at sub 15,000 megawatts. You can see that from the 31st and the 1st, again, we're at lower than 15,000 megawatts. Just to put this into context, when we went into the baseline period of May, this was upwards of 17,000 megawatts. When we did the winter outlook, the worst case scenario was saying that the rate at which these units could be failing on their own could take out potentially about 18,000 megawatts, and that was part of the worst case scenario, and we are beginning to take it down. So two key indices, the matrices are important. The first one is that the planned maintenance, we are ramping it up so that when these units come back, they come back healthy and are able to give us a significant amount of hours and also performing at design capacity. And the second one is that as a result of that action, we are beginning to see that the units tripping on their own is coming down, and of course that is going to help us to address the available capacity, and we should be able to meet the peak forecast, especially during this period when demand is tapering. We can say that demand is tapering, and now it's averaging about 28,000 megawatts. To put it into context, when the winter period, it was averaging about 31,000 megawatts, and I think it reached a peak of about 33,900 megawatts. So essentially it has come down by close to about 3,000 megawatts, and we are using that opportunity to ensure that we take out the units and we get to fix them. And again, Another excellent indicator here is on the issues of the outage slips, the period under review, August 28 to the 1st of September, the previous week, Monday to Friday. It is again at about 770 megawatts. And like I said, the outage slips really talks to the degree to which we were able to plan these planned outages, and as we take them out, we make the promise to the country that we'll return this unit by this date, and of course we are retaining this unit at the date at which we have promised, and this is an excellent indicator of the improved planning on the part of the executives at Eskom, and we really want to commend them for that work. Of course, I do provide a context, and the context is that you can see the trend line in relation to the planned outages. When we entered the period of August, we had about 5,100 megawatts, and we have ramped it up to 6,600 megawatts. If you put this in the context of the May baseline, we started at about 2,000, 3,000 megawatts. Now we're at 6,600 megawatts. So we're taking units that amounts to 3,600 megawatts for them to be fixed, so that we're able to retain them healthy, we're able to undermine unplanned capacity loss factor. Again, it's important that we are able to show that trend line. We did say that we are going to use May as our baseline from the available capacity. Even at the rate at which we are taking out the units, we are still at 1,200 megawatts, more than what was the available capacity during the May period. So this is an illustration that we are using the opportunity for good maintenance for us to be able to ensure that we improve the health of these units. Like I said, the planned outages, of course, were at 6,600. That is the Friday. Of course, over the period that started in August, it averages about 4,300. I did say that the Thursday and Friday were sub 14,000 megawatts in relation to the units that trips on their own. Of course, the average over that period is 15,000 megawatts. Like I said, our intention is to make sure that these units become more and more reliable. We are able to exploit them. We are able to sweat this asset so that we get the megawatts that are necessary. And that's why it's important that you must invest in planned maintenance. And what you are seeing now is stage 4, like I said, controlled on our side. Important that we are able to take out the units and make sure that when they return, they show significant health from the number of hours that they'll be operating, but also approximating, if you like, their design capacity. I did make the point that it is important that we begin to share with the country the kind of impact that our independent power producer program is having on the South African economy. And I'm making this point outside the megawatts that is giving us, outside this program altering the energy mix in the country, outside the reaffirmation of our commitment to ensure that we decarbonize, we are able to exploit our natural endowment in the form of real estate in the Northern Cape, but also the levels of irradiations, the intensity of the sun that we're getting, and the quality of the sun we're getting in the Northern Cape, and the quality of the wind that we're getting in the coastal areas of the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape. So that speaks to the generation component. But it's important that we surface what are the socio-economic impact of this. So what we know about this program since we started with bid window number 1. The first one is that it has been able to produce over 72,163 job years. I mean, it's a computation that we are using for us to be able to account for the number of employment opportunity that has been created in the South African economy as a result of the interventions of the renewable energy program. And this speaks to the areas of during construction and also during operations. And then the total value, the rent value value of about 3.2 billion rand is what has been accumulated to the South African economy. And this has got significant impact in relation to socio-economic development and the areas of enterprise development, so that we are able to expand the flow of opportunities to local communities. We are able to provide new skills that helps them to participate in this energy transition, and we are beginning to give concrete meaning to our vision of what constitutes just energy. And of course, because we are replacing, if you like, we're using alternative sources of generating capacity. That also has got implications on one scarce resource, which is water. We know that we are a water scarce country, and as a result of us generating this kind of megawatts at the magnitude that we are generating, we have been able to save about 114 million kiloliters of water. I'm sure you know that when you use coal to generate electricity, there's significant amount of consumption of water. Of course, part of this transition is to help us to ensure that we are able to preserve that scarce resource, which is water, and that's what has been the impact. And of course, as we continue to ramp up on the renewable energy agenda, and I'll share with you some of the big windows, these savings are going to become more meaningful and significant. The impact on the South African economy, the skills profile, and communities where we have these projects have a footprint is going to become more and more meaningful. About the 85 billion rands, and this is actual spending, has been placed in the hands of black business to date. And this is significant as we talk about the deracialization of the South African economy. We are able to use, if you like, our transition towards cleaner forms of energy to ensure that they provide significant meaning on this agenda of the deracialization of the South African economy. And we are having new participants, new entrants in the form of black players, so that the democratic dividend is equitably distributed to all South Africans. And then we'll spend over 69 billion rands in relation to local content. So what does this mean? That there's been a significant industrialization of the components that are required, industrialization on the back of the localization of the components that are necessary to help us to decarbonize and transition. So that's important, because our view is that on the back of this transition, on the back of this crisis, we must be able to expand, if you like, the industrial base of the country, and we see the continent as a market, and that market is not only isolated to the South African domestic market. And on the back of this decarbonization, on the back of the resolution of this crisis, we are also able to address the challenge of unemployment. We are able to address the challenge of structural unemployment in the form of the skills that are required to support the kind of economy that we are constructing. And this economy, of course, will be underpinned by renewable energy sources. So it's important that we are able to build a cadre, if you like, of people with the requisite skills to help us to decarbonize. And then we can see that the local communities are empowered, they are not left out. Meaningful, about 9.6%, close to 10% of shareholding in this renewable energy projects. And then, of course, 38.7% is now in the hands of black players. So the point we are making is that there's a gradual improvement, participation rates of black players, local communities, so that we expand the flow of opportunities, and we're able to achieve the issues of qualitative and thoroughgoing transformation as a result of this decarbonization agenda. And we're beginning to see that the independent power program gives us that opportunity to be able to cement the efforts. And of course, the one area that has received the elevated attention here hitherto is the issues around the reduction in the emissions levels. So we have been able to offset about 97 million tons of carbon dioxide as a result of this intervention. So the point we're really trying to convey is that this is meaningful. There's a multiplicity of matrices that underpin the renewable agenda. It's not just only on the complexion of the generation mix, on the reductions of the emission levels, but it also plays an important role in the deracialization of the work that we are doing. And I did make the point around the issues that underpin the work that we are doing in relation to ensuring that this new energy mix is going to help us to ensure that we have additional available capacity. Again, we know that the IPP selected as preferred bidders, about 134 of them, and the electricity capacity procured through this process is about 11,904 megawatts. And the amount of investment, the total investment that we have made over this period. So I'm talking about the aggregate, not necessarily what has been, what is sitting now in the hands of communities, what is sitting in the hands of black participants, but essentially what constitute the aggregate investment into the South African economy. So it's about 334 billion rand. So you can see that what the renewable energy program has done has placed South Africa as an investment destination for those who are committed to the decarbonization agenda. And we are able to spread, if you like, the cake to make sure that the communities where these projects have a footprint are able to benefit from this, and also to make sure that we are able to use this as part of the deracialization of the South African economy. So as I speak to you, although there's 11,904 megawatts of electricity capacity that has been procured, it doesn't necessarily follow that all of it is now operational. So as I speak to you, of the 134 IPPs that have been selected as preferred bidders, given preferred bidder status, 90 of them are operational, and those that are operational are giving us 6,000 megawatts of the 11,904 megawatts. I think it's an important figure there. Although we have gone out, procured this 11,904, some of them are still in the stages of development, of construction, but the ones that will benefit the South African economy when the sun is out, should be benefiting over 6,180 megawatts. And the total amount of energy generated by the renewable energy sources is about 95,547 gigawatt hours. So that's significant. Of course, I mean, within the totality of what the energy mix is, it's still insignificant. We continue to ramp up. We really want to see it to constituting significantly higher than 10%. If you look at the IRP, we really have an agenda to ensure that we are ramping up renewable energy production. I did make the point that one of the limiting factors, of course, is a structural problem for now, is the issues around the transmission line, and we have shared with you the work that we are doing to ensure that we are able to strengthen and expand, if you like, transmission capacity in the country. And one of the issues just to mention is that, of course, we are proceeding in relation to ensuring that we are going to procure additional renewable energy solutions as part of the Independent Power Producer Program. The battery energy storage bid window 1, the submission was closed on the 2nd of August, and 17 bids were received, and this is now still in evaluation stage. Our projection is that the bid window 2 with regards to battery energy storage solution is of about 1,231 megawatts, should go out in the 4th quarter of this year. So early next year we should be seeing the second round of the battery energy storage, and this is important in the general calculus of energy solution solutions in the country. One of the biggest criticism is that this renewable energy are available when the sun is out, when the wind is blowing. So you need some storage capacity so that at the time when we need it the most, we are able to exploit these resources. We'll exploit them better if we have been able to store them as and when we need them. We are able to make them available to the grid. And you can see that putting the bid windows, bid window 1 and window 2 on battery storage capacity is going to help in this exercise. And again, bid window 7, I did make the point, we working DMRE to make sure that we go out on this request for proposal. I've made the point that we're going out to market, we're searching for 5,000 megawatts. It's a combination of both PV and wind that we're looking for. And then the gas one, Q4, we should be going out getting about 1,000 megawatts, but in aggregate we're looking for about 3,000 megawatts going forward. Again, one of the critical successful factors of this program is to ensure that there's transmission capacity, and it's an area of work that is receiving attention. And just to say, as I conclude, in relation to what has been the performance of the independent power producer program, its impact on the socio-economic outcomes, its impact on the issues on the deracialization of the South African economy, just to say that the risk mitigation independent power program, 1,000 megawatt has been procured, and of course 3 of these projects to the tune of about 150 megawatts are already in construction, and 8 of the projects in this space are getting to commercial close. On bid window number 5, you know, we went out. 9 projects are in construction to the tune of about 1,009 megawatts, and 10 projects again are getting to financial close. Bid window 6, 1,000 megawatts, and again 6 projects. That gives us about 1,000 megawatts have been announced as preferred bidders, and of course preparing to go to financial close. I made the point around battery storage and then gas. The project is still in conceptualization. When we are ready, we'll be able to go out for request for proposal. And this is really an affirmation of the fact that we are doing everything possible to ensure that we ramp up renewable energy share of the mix as part of the integrated resource plan. And like I said, I think the transmission is going to be an important part of the work that we are doing. And with regards to bid window 7 on the 5,000 megawatt request for proposal is in design, and we expect to go out that in the third quarter of this year. And again, bid window 8 of 5,000 megawatts. I did make the point that conceptualization and design and request for proposal is planned for the fourth quarter of 2023-24. Essentially, I'm talking about early next year. And this is the efforts that we are making to ensure that we are able to ramp up the participation and the share of renewables in the energy mix, and ensure that we are able to, on the back of this decarbonization agenda, spread, if you like, the economic opportunities, ensure that the local communities where this project have got a footprint are meaningful participants, ensure that there's some degree of localization so that we're able to industrialize on the back of this crisis and create skills going into the future, and looking at the continent within the context of the Africa Continental Free Trade area as a market opportunity going into the future. Thank you very much, Tsaka.
All right, that was the Electricity Minister, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, just giving us an update on the energy action plan that has been implemented to deal with the load shedding. Remember that last month he did announce that about 56% of about 50 plans have already been complete or in the stage of being completed. So we are to hear as to when they will reach full capacity of 100% of completion of all those tasks. But for now, let's take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment.
The nation mourns after the bodies of 74 people were pulled from that burnt-out building in the Johannesburg CBD.
The fire started from the first floor going up. I've never seen something like that because they were really jumping.
I'm looking for my daughter. She stays in this building.
Picture of an informal settlement inside the building.
The people who must be blamed here is government.
This building was hijacked by the thugs, by the criminals.
Sadly, it's an accident that has been waiting to happen for ages.
It was indeed a moment of sadness. When you have to walk through the street and you witness the tragedy of people having lost their lives in such large numbers.
Water, a basic human right, left unprotected and neglected. As South Africans are left vulnerable to poor and failing infrastructure, waterborne diseases, unprecedented droughts and floods, we take a closer look at the country's decaying basic water services and its devastating knock-on effects on the well-being of all South Africans. SABC News, independent, impartial.
All right, let's go back to Pretoria for an update from the Electricity Minister, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa.
The South African economy, but the damage will be much greater if we don't look after these assets. And like I said, I mean, it's managed. We will make sure that we really don't go to alarming stages of intensity of load shedding. We are doing things right. I think that's the point I've been making since I came into this position. We can take expedient measures. I mean, for an example, when we took out the unit at Kusile, the only operating unit, it was still running. So the most expedient things that this is a big unit giving you 800 megawatts, allow it to run. No, we take it out and we get to fix it. And that's the point that we're making. And like I said, I mean, you'll see, of course, Eskom did make the announcement there's going to be an attenuation of this intensity starting tomorrow. But the point I really want to emphasize to the South African public is that we're going to do things right to avert what has been part of the problem historically that has landed us to where we are today. And we are confident that once I come to you and say we have resolved load shedding, I'll be having significant amount of confidence on the reliability of this unit. So we'll continue to do things right. They come at short-term pain, but there's going to be long-term gain. That's the point I'm simply making. In relation to the 500 million rand of facility that the Chinese have made available, I did make the point in the last meeting that there is still a subject of that discussion. So on the issues of the donation with regards to the equipment, we know that's a grant, there are no conditions attached, and then the 500 is still that the discussion that is happening. And we have made a commitment publicly that we'll share these things. We are going to be very transparent, and of course, what is going to underpin the conversation is the protection of the interest of South Africans. On the IRP, our discussion with Minister Mantashe is that we should be going out very soon, and really the projection was that towards the end of September. I'll come back to you because there's one or two things that we just need to firm up with the Ministry DMRE, and I'm confident that in the next discussion I'll be very absolute in relation to what is the time frame that we are looking at to release the IRP for public consultation. And with regards to residual demand, I'll allow our Eskom colleagues to be able to answer that. On the issues around car powership, I did make the point that is still a subject of the contestations in relation to the EIAs, the issues around what the objections are. It's something that is managed by Department of Fisheries, Forestry and Environment. At the right time, those announcements will be made. I know that in one of those applications, in fact, the developer had withdrawn the EIA application. They are going to revise it because they had acknowledged that there were fatal flaws in in an initial submission. The other one, I think, in Kucha had to do with the issues around Transnet, the Port Authority there, with regards to the chosen location of the berthing. It's something that constitute a conversation at that level. As and when these things mature, we'll be able to announce to you. But yes, I mean, just to the question, the point we are making is that we can benefit significantly on that additional capacity. So it's regrettable it's taking that amount of time. And one of the discussions we have had internally with my peers in government is to say that, look, if there's that delay, I think there's a case for us to do another process. We will do that process. So we'll wait for advice, essentially just for us to have an appreciation of the length of time it takes for those EIA issues to be resolved. If there appears to be intractable, I'm sure we'll find a solution on how to address this question going into the future. But the country can benefit immensely from that emergency procurement of about 3,000 megawatts. You can see that the system still continues to be under strain, and it's important that we are able to provide the kind of relief that is necessary as we prepare ourselves to the next cycle of winter. I think we need to build significant buffers as we are bringing new units onto stream. Of course, we have brought the 2 units at Tutuka that have been on outage for a long time. They're generating megawatts, and of course we'll continue to give you update on the ones that are going to come back at Kusile Unit 5 and Unit 1, 2 and 3 before the end of the year. But it's important, like I said, for us to emphasize we need new generating capacity, and that's why we're ramping up. That's why we took time to share with you what we're doing in relation to renewable energy solutions. It's important that we have a specific focus on base load, and this powership was meant to do that. Of course, it's taking an extraordinary length of time, and it's undermining our ability to respond and respond sufficiently in relation to new generating capacity.
I'd like us to check if we still have Mr. Eric Shinamgoma on line to respond to the question regarding residual demand. If not, we'll proceed with Tseho if we have any more questions online.
Thank you, Susan. We have a couple of questions online. One from Kgosientsho, EE Business Intelligence. Please, can you indicate an estimate of all the costs involved in the life extension of Koeberg Power Station, including the capex costs, plus the costs that have been expensed as OPEX, such as the replacement of the Unit 1 reactor head a few years ago, plus escalation and rate of exchange variations since the initial budget about 1,012 years ago, plus interest during construction, plus the cost of unserved energy to the economy during the various shutdown of Unit 1 and Unit 2 for life extension. Another question from Chris. Please, can you advise why Koeberg Unit 1 is scheduled for a further shutdown of 200 days on 21 July 2024, the day its operating license expires, only 8 months after Unit 1 is scheduled to return to service on 3 November 2023, following a 10-month for replacement of its 3 steam generators and other life extension work. Then we have another question from Marvin, News 24. Minister, earlier this week you were due to brief the Western Cape Provincial Legislature but didn't pitch. The legislature has now moved to summon you to appear before the House. What is your response to the summons? Will you still account to the legislature? And what were the reasons that you didn't pitch earlier this week? I have 2 more questions, but
all right, we come out of that crossing in Pretoria by the Electricity Minister, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa.